Hi guys, Mr. P here and welcome to episode 4 of Taking Teaching Back, a series of videos exclusive to my YouTube channel where I discuss issues within education that I think add to our workload and don't necessarily impact our student. Now, if you've not watched the first 3 episodes, I would suggest pausing this video, going back and watching them first. Episode 1 was all about butt scrutinies, episode 2 was about the fear in education, episode 3 was all about the accountability of SAT. Just want to start by just saying a massive thank you to everyone who's supported the other videos, liked, commented, shared. It's been amazing to hear so many stories of where these sort of videos have really opened up discussions in schools, and actually a lot of schools now have actually taken on board some advice and moved forward, meaning that teachers are getting their time back and aren't doing things that don't necessarily impact the children. And I can only apologise that it's been a while since I've been able to make one of these videos for this series, but you know what it's like, we're so busy. I got carried away towards the end of the year, we've had summer, but at this point in the summer break I thought it'd be really useful to discuss an issue that I know is certainly worrying a lot of teachers, and the way certain schools deal with this needs to change. So what we're going to be discussing in episode 4 are classroom displays. That's right. Now, just to get us started, I do believe that classroom displays can have an impact on children's learning. In a lot of classrooms though, I don't think they necessarily do. So there has been research around classroom displays, and I will put the link to that in the description, so please do give it a read. And a lot of it talks about things like natural light being very, very important, other bits and bobs, but it does give you a breakdown of the right amount and the colours and so on that found to have an impact on children's learning. It also talks about how you can over-clutter your classroom, which is certainly true. I don't know how many times I've been in a Key Stage 1 classroom and nearly decapitated myself on a washing line. So I think most teachers fall into one or two categories when it comes to classroom displays. You have the ones who absolutely love it, you know, that is their bread and butter. They're very, very arty. They're the ones who tend to have really neat handwriting as well, by the way, just putting that one out there. So they love all the design elements to it, you know, just the heat from the laminator gets them going. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Then I think you get the other teachers who just aren't like that. They're just not into the art side of it. I'm like that. I'm not very arty at all. I hold my hands up. That is not my area of expertise. And so if you're in that first group, your classroom's already done. I'm telling you now, it looks immaculate, looks amazing. And then there's the other group who'll probably go in just a couple of days before just to get it done. Remember, as an NQT, I spent most of that first summer just absolutely hammering my classroom, and every inch of the wall was covered. I just went overboard. And then the next year, I had to move classrooms. So again, I came in loads, and then as it progressed, I seemed to spend less and less, and then didn't tend to clutter as much. And I think the biggest discussion that you need to have as a staff is to discuss the actual content of what goes on a display, because you can get displays that look incredible. The colours, the design, the borders, it's double backed, all that, but the actual content of what's on that display is just utter garbage. And then you'll have classrooms where everything is just from the same website, and it is basically like death by worksheet on a display. So a really important thing to consider is making sure that the content is accessible to the majority of the class wherever they are in the classroom. There's nothing worse than having a display where the text is so small you have to take a magnifying glass to the display to actually see what it says. And going back to the content of your displays, it's really asking the question, is this going to be useful to the children throughout the year? Now, I know back in the day, you know, with certain things, I remember my first classroom, it was all about the triangles, you know, the VCOP. I hated that. I hated the triangle because there's no context to it. So how is having a triangle with different layers of punctuation going to help children use punctuation more effectively? So at the time, that was what we were using as a school, and that was expected. I don't think that had any impact at all on children in my classroom. The one display I created that I thought did have a bit of an impact. In the middle of it was a text that I had written so it had examples of what I wanted to pull out. Then certain words were highlighted, and then a line was drawn to the side. So for example, an adjective would be highlighted, pulled out to the side, then there would be a blank space, and it'd be the adjective linked to size, a blank space, and the children could then add other words to use. I did the same with conjunctions, punctuation, and so on. Because with a conjunctions display, there's no point just giving a list of conjunctions. For me, it was more about the children seeing it in context. I would include sentences with certain types of conjunctions. Then to the side, there was a list of other conjunctions the children could use, but I left it blank at the beginning of the year for the children to contribute to it on post-it notes or whatever it might be. This is where I think things like working walls really do work, because it's all about keeping it current and linked to what you're doing at that time. There's no point at the beginning of the year making a maths display that's all about angles and shape, and I'm not doing that till spring term. I like the idea of working walls, but what you've got to remember with a working wall is it is a working wall. So the expectation for it to look beautiful, immaculate, and so on, you're not going to get that. What that's about is sharing what the children are going to need to use to help them with their learning during that topic. If I think now I could design my ideal classroom, I'd just paint it all with whiteboard paint. I'd just have whiteboards all around the classroom so we can just add things no matter where in the classroom, linking it to what we're doing at that time. Yes, it might not be as pleasing on the eye for whoever's walking, doing one of those learning walks, coming in, but for my children, knowing it's accessible, that they've contributed to it, they've had ownership to it, it's linked directly to what they're doing at that time, I know that's going to support them and help them with their learning. I think one of the most important parts of your classroom displays is making sure that children have ownership of it. So it's making sure there is space for children to proudly showcase their work. I think that probably has more of an impact than anything else. What I always try and talk to schools about is how you can take that outside of the classroom. So this is where, for me, the internet can be an incredibly powerful tool to give children this global platform to share, celebrate, and publish their work. And I can tell you this now, the impact that will have on the quality work when the children know it's not just going to be seen between the four walls of your classroom, but be there for the world forever. Game changer. But now let's talk about how displays might have more of a negative impact on workload and things like that. I think your classroom, this is really, really important, but I think your classroom needs to reflect some of your personality as well. It is your space, it is your domain, it is your kingdom. And so you do have to take a bit of ownership of it yourself. I'm not very keen on schools who expect every classroom to look the exact same with the exact same display types, same content, and so on. I do think more trust should be given to teachers and letting them design their classrooms to reflect the way they teach and their personality. I know for a fact there are classrooms where the displays aren't all that pretty naff, but children are learning day in, day out and making loads of progress. At the same time, I know there'll be classrooms where the displays look the best, that they could win awards, you know, like they've been designed by an interior designer, whatever it might be, but actually the teaching and learning is pretty poor. And in some cases, I think we do need to talk about the time, money and effort that goes into making these classroom displays and whether that could be used better. You know, do I want a teacher who's just knackered themselves all the way through the summer getting the classroom ready? Or would I prefer the teacher to have that time to recharge the batteries, money used more on station? The way the budgets are as well at the minute, you know, is it cost effective to have everything laminated to be put on a display? You know, these things, just because it might look nicer doesn't necessarily mean it's going to benefit the children better. But the one thing I do need to talk about are the schools and the SLT who demand everything done a certain way. So this was a tweet I saw. It was shared by @RogersHistory. And this SLT had walked around the school and started to email everyone talking about different colours of the backing paper, borders missing, and so on. This is where, I'm sorry, whoever that is who sent that email needs to get a bloody life. That is a joke. It has no impact, the shade of blue on a border. That's just you being pedantic, wanting everything to look the same, when actually it doesn't add anything to children's learning. Get a life. Seen other examples where schools are counting the amount of staples being used on a display, or the staples need to look a certain way, and busybodies have written policies about how displays need to look to make sure staples are here, there and everywhere. And I reckon this happens more at those schools, you know, the ones where you've got more managers than teachers. And these managers, to justify why they're getting paid that little bit extra, they're coming up with ridiculous jobs like this, writing a flipping border display policy. How's that going to impact children's learning? The stress and the worry and the anxiety and the time and the effort teachers will have now spent over the summer following these little documents, knowing full well there's going to be a learning walk soon where they're not coming to look at whether the children are making progress, whether they're engaged, whether they're actually listening, whether they're actually taking on board and building their knowledge. No. Have we got everything in line? Is the border 2 inches that way? Is there 4 staples? Are they all staples vertical or whatever it might be? This is... Now, if you're one of those teachers watching this, right, or an SLT, should I say, watching this, right, make me promise now that you'll stop it, because that is just absolutely ridiculous. How can we be expecting to retain amazing teachers when we don't treat them as professional? By the way, if I'm wrong, if there is some sort of research to say that a certain shade of blue on every display throughout the whole school will progress children, I'll hold my hands up, fair dues. But I can't see that there is. It isn't your house, is it? Now, in my house, I'd love it to be immaculate. I'd love it to be clean all the time. But I've got 3 7-year-olds there. Now imagine a room full of 30, even more. You can't keep things pristine. But what's more important is making sure you create an environment where the children are happy, where they feel safe, where they want to learn, they want to build their knowledge, engage. That's where we're going to make a difference. So, as always, I would love to hear what you think. Please do share any thoughts, any comments on the video. As always, please do share, like it, get tagging your teacher friends in as well. And do get in touch if you think there's another topic that needs discussing in these videos. I know they take a more serious tone than the other ones, but I think it's really important that we do question certain things, just ask certain questions, because I want us as a profession to move forward. I want everyone working smarter, not harder. I want us to take teaching back and focus on making a difference in these young people's lives. Thanks for watching.